everyone. Welcome to the Be Me Life. So, today we have a very special podcast with two guests from Boston Scientific. They're both biomedical engineers. We have Kimberly and Vanessa, and Vanessa is a product analyst at Boston Scientific, and Kimberly is an R&D engineer. So, just to give a little bit of their educational background, they both have bachelor's degrees in biomedical engineering, and Vanessa graduated from Stony Brook University, and Kimberly graduated from Columbia University. So we're very happy to have you guys here. It's the first time we have two Hispanic female engineers that are successful, that work at one of the greatest medical device companies. So, yeah, I'd just like to start off by asking you guys why you decided to choose and pursue biomedical engineering. And I guess just to make it more smooth, we can start with Kimberly, and then Vanessa, you can give your answer.
Okay, so I'm happy to be here. So I chose biomedical engineering because when I was younger, my dad had an accident where he had lost his left hand, and I grew up kind of always interested in prosthetics. When it came time to middle school, we did the career aptitude test, and BME came up. I had no idea what that was. I'm a first generation student, so even engineering for me was a little out there. And yeah, once I got to college and once I was applying, I realized BME, you can do a bit of prosthetics, you can do medical devices, you can do research. And for me, I love the biology part of it. I was interested in medicine, didn't really want to be a doctor, but I love the engineering hands-on part.
That's awesome. What about you, Vanessa?
So in high school, I took an anatomy class that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed learning about the human body and all the different systems that work so that we can be alive. And then when I was looking through careers, I see that BMU was a career that kind of combined the science and math with that human aspect. And that really drew me to it because I thought it was pretty unique compared to all the other engineering careers that are out there. So that's pretty much why I was attracted to BME and why I decided to pursue it.
Yeah, those are two great answers, and I mean I totally relate to it. I was very undecided when I first started college. Like I had no idea what to study. I think I kind of wanted to do engineering because I was interested in math and applying it, not just studying math. But then when I heard about biomedical engineering, it was just like a very new field, and it just sounded cool, honestly. And yeah, I also really learning about the body. So yeah, it's great. So let's jump into talking about your undergrad experience. What was it like? I know you both had internship and research experience, as well as being involved in organizations like the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So, would you like to tell us a little bit of I guess, the timeline of what your experience was like during your undergrad career?
Yeah, so I can go first again. In my school, your first 2 years, you take general classes, your physics, your calculus, and then in your last 2 years is when you take your specialized courses for BME. We did not have a focus for our degree. You just kind of took whatever you thought you were interested in more. But while I was taking my general classes my first 2 years, I did an internship at a hospital where we did more social work. We connected a lot of the patients to social programs. And then I did an internship at a startup where it was more operations management. For a moment, I dabbled a little bit in business thinking that's what I wanted to switch to, but I ended up loving BME. And then I interned with Boston Scientific between my junior and senior year, which I loved, and it was an amazing internship. Throughout school, I was involved in the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I was on the executive board first as the volunteer chair, and then the external vice president. But yes, that organization is very near and dear to my heart, and it helped me a lot in securing my job.
That's great.
Yeah, and my experience was a bit similar, especially how Kim mentioned in the first 2 years. It was a lot of just prerequisites like math and physics, and kind of deciding the track that you wanted to pursue. So at Stony Brook, we had 3 different tracks. We had biomechanics and biomaterials, bioimaging, and then cellular and molecular. And so my sophomore year, I chose biomechanics and biomaterials because I was interested more in learning about mechanics and taking more mechanical geared classes. And sophomore year, I also joined the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So I met a lot of people, and especially older people who were more experienced in their undergraduate career. So I saw that a lot of people were doing internships and even co-ops, and that's kind of when the gears started turning in my head, saying maybe I should try it out. So the spring of my sophomore year, I did my first co-op at Boston Scientific, and that's when I really kind of learned that I truly liked the medical device industry, and it was just nice to get a different learning experience outside of the classroom. So that's kind of my story of my undergraduate degree.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit more about like how it was for you to actually get that internship opportunity, because there comes a moment, or at least for me, in like junior, sophomore year, that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need an internship, and you start applying to a bunch of them. How is it for you? What helped you guys the most to actually land those first internship experience? Like what really made you, or like helped you really just get that opportunity?
So for me, it was networking through the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So there was an alumni that worked full time for Boston Scientific, and she connected me to a hiring manager who later on she extended an offer. So I think networking is definitely key in trying to get internships and co-ops, and it's also a way to know what the day in the life is of an engineer and see if that's really for you.
Yeah, and I would second what Kim said. I think networking helps a lot, especially when you're an undergrad. Um, my perspective on it, at least the way I thought about it for myself, was like I just kind of wanted any type of experience. So I really kind of challenged myself to talk to as many people as I could and see the different paths that they took. And something that really helps with that is going to conferences. So I attended the SHEP conference where I was able to meet a ton of people, and it was obviously a little easier before COVID when things were in person, but even now they're still hosting virtual conferences that are very helpful in just connecting and kind of establishing a personal connection with the people that work at the companies that you might be interested in. So that was something that was very helpful for me in finding my co-ops and different internships, just going to those conferences.
Probably one of the things that you should focus on the most when you're an undergrad, and even as a professional, it's still great to network, because you never know who's going to be your next opportunity. So other than networking, which is probably the most important thing, what kind of like skills, maybe like hard skills, would you say that maybe helped you the most, um, for, like, if any? And you can say like, oh, they didn't really care about my skills, it was just my personality. But are there any hard skills that you think were valuable when applying to these internships?
Yeah, I could start with that one. So something that really helped me when I got my first co-op was the summer before that co-op, I had applied to a research internship in the summer, where basically I was given kind of the authority, not authority, but independence to kind of run a project by myself. And I learned how to use Arduino and MATLAB to collect data. So definitely skills, if you're trying to pinpoint them, I would say data collection and analysis is huge. Understanding like how to analyze any type of data that you get and give it back in a way that makes sense, that can tell a story. I think that's very helpful. So that would be one skill that I would say helped me a lot.
Yeah, and echoing what Vanessa said, I definitely think taking statistics before my internship helped a lot. We use that so much, and I didn't really realize that. I thought I'd be using like mechanics, but I also do think like soft skills plays an important role because then you can ask around and ask somebody to kind of like guide you through what's what, because every project has their own different technicalities.
No. Yeah, I totally agree. Did you guys take more than one statistics class, or because in my degree there was only one statistics, so I was just wondering if you guys took more than one.
I took one and one.
One. So
Yeah, same. And mine was biostatistics, so it
yeah.
was different than regular statistics.
Yeah, no, mine was bio too. I was just wondering because that is very true, and that's something that my boss has actually told me before, that statistics is very important, and I feel like for engineering and really most, or not most, but a lot of fields do require statistics, and it can be very helpful when you're analyzing data and things like that. Um, so just going into your life as a graduate, Kimberly, you graduated in 2018, and Vanessa, you just graduated in 2020, correct? Okay, I graduated in 2022. So I'm wondering, it's gonna be interesting to listen to you guys because Kim, you graduated 2 years ago, and Vanessa, you graduated during a global pandemic. So now I'm curious to know what both of y'all's life was like when you graduated. Was it hard finding a job? How did it go for you once you graduate?
Yeah.
Kim, do you want to go first?
Yes. So I got a job offer before I graduated at a conference. So it was February of my senior year. So I had something lined up once graduation hit. And when I started work, we started like probably like 10, 15 entry level engineers. Because back then we were not in a global pandemic. So I, because of the networking, because of previous internships, I wouldn't say it was hard to get a full-time offer.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I would say, so I personally started my job search around January during the semester, just to like start exploring different positions and different things. It was difficult. It wasn't easy, I'll be honest. And once May came around, unfortunately, I still did not land a job. So I was continuing my search. And finally, in August, I was able to get the position that I'm in now, which I actually only started a month ago. So I'm still pretty new.
Wow.
Yeah. But overall, I would say the class of 2020 is very unique. And Mary, I'm sure you've experienced this. I'm not sure what your experience has been, but I would say that we collectively, excuse me, struggled. It's not easy, but I guess I would say I just kept persevering and continued trying all possibilities, and just yeah, just trying. So
Yeah.
it wasn't easy, but thankfully I was able to find something.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's definitely hard because people, as being in this platform where we try to help people pursue biomedical engineering, people come and ask like, how hard is it to find a job? And I feel like it's very hard for me to answer because we're in the situation where it's a pandemic. So I'm not sure if this is always the case or if it's just because of the pandemic. But for me, it's also been kind of difficult. I had an internship experience the summer before my senior year, so I was able to continue with them as well in a startup company. But because it is a startup, they did talk about a potential job offer for full time, but everything happened, and then that full time offer has just been pushed back and pushed back. So yeah, I've still been able to apply to other things, and yeah, without wanting to get much into detail about me, but yeah, it's definitely been, different and tough, but it's awesome to hear stories like yours where we can see that through perseverance you can definitely find a job. And yeah, it's not going to be easy, and no one said it's going to be easy, but there are jobs out there, if you do the right work before you graduate, right? I think most of the work is definitely done during your undergrad. So I know, Kimberly, you said that the most helpful thing for you was, you know, just getting that internship, and then you got that offer. And then that was pretty much through networking. Vanessa, would you say that networking was the most helpful thing when landing this job, or how would you say that you can stand out as a candidate against others?
So that's a good question. I think there's several different aspects. So I'll kind of try to form my thoughts a little clearly. But one is the preparation for interviews, I think is huge. Um, just because that's who you're presenting. You're presenting, that's who they're going to see. And that's the person they're going to think is going to be hired, and they're going to judge you. So I think that was very helpful for me personally, just the preparation for the interviews and just practicing with different people and learning to get comfortable with the way I speak and how I kind of present myself and tell the story on my resume. And then that's kind of a good segue for what you mentioned, Mary, is a lot of the work is in during your undergrad. I think all the different experiences that you can accumulate during your undergrad, and that can be through anything, through classes, through projects, internships, research, anything, is hopefully you're able to take like hard skills and put that on your resume so that you can speak to that during interviews. And I think that's what helped me the most, was just having that very clear in my mind when I was applying to these jobs, and just pulling from the experiences that I had as an undergrad and trying to make them applicable to whatever role I was applying for. So that's what I would say could help you stand out a little bit.
Do any of you have any tips on like building your resume and preparing for interviews, if any, or was it kind of just like something that came naturally out of you and you just knew how to put it together?
I'd say get it peer reviewed as much as you can. Like have different people look at it. My school had a career center where you can go and they will tear your resume apart, but which is good. You would rather them than a recruiter that'll just put your resume to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Just practicing as much as you can, allowing yourself room for error too, because sometimes for me personally, I felt like if I felt like an interview didn't go well, I would kind of reflect on what parts didn't go well and try to, do something different. So just experiment and trust in yourself and be confident, I think would be my advice.
Yeah, no, that's great. And okay, so now moving into in like now as a professional biomedical engineer, and I know you guys have both different titles. Kim, you're an R&D engineer, and then Vanessa, product analyst. Could you just share a little bit about what you do on your day to day? And maybe I know Vanessa just started with COVID already, but maybe Kim could share a little bit about the difference of how it was before COVID and how it is now?
Yes. So before COVID, I was on a different project. I was in the office every single day, and there was a lot of testing in the lab. Kind of during the peak of COVID, we went fully remote. We were working mostly on documentation. Since we make medical devices, we have to make sure our testing is in order because it will be submitted to the FDA. And now, kind of like in this time of COVID, the office opened back up. So any testing that we have to do, I do go in. I'll go in sometimes 4 days a week. Sometimes I'll go in 1 day a week. It really depends. But my day-to-day is usually doing a lot of testing because we're building the production line right now in Costa Rica. So making sure our design is meeting the specifications we say they are, because once that line is built, there's kind of like no going back.
What about you, Vanessa?
So I'm still pretty new, but I guess a higher level overview of what I do. I'll start out by talking about post-market surveillance. So there are the FDA and different regulatory bodies throughout the world have different regulations in place to kind of monitor products and medical devices once they're out in the field. So, as a product analyst, I work to take in any complaints that might happen and analyze them and then determine their reportability and which authority they would go to. So, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, what department is, or is there like a specific department that being a product analyst is under, or is that just like post market surveillance?
It would be geared toward quality, like in.
Quality. Okay. Yeah, sorry. It's just since I'm in a startup, it's like really hard for me to understand departments because we don't have any. So it's very interesting to listen to you all just talk about different areas. So, Kimberly, I know we've talked before, and you mentioned something about being in a rotational program. Could you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yes. So coming out of school, I was in the graduate rotational program in a manufacturing plant in Spencer, Indiana, for Boston Scientific. It's a 2-year program where you do 3 rotations out of 4 options. So you do operations, process development engineering, manufacturing, and quality. I was there for about a year and a half, and I got through 2 rotations. I did operations as a production supervisor, where you see more of the business side. You're basically in charge of a production line, and you're in charge that they're meeting their numbers every day. It was definitely a tough job. It's not what I expected right out of college, but it's definitely something that taught me so much. So when it was time to become an engineer who's working on the design, we make sure it's manufacturable, because it will definitely cause a lot of headaches down the line. And then I was in process development engineering, which is the group that starts forming the production line. Once you have a design for it, the PD team kind of comes in and starts making the production line, seeing what technologies will be used to build it. And it was for Exalt, which is a product that launched early this year. And yeah, there was those 2 programs. I was going to do a 3rd rotation, but to be closer to family, I moved out to Boston and switched out to R&D. But I felt like it was a really good program because I didn't know exactly which function I wanted to be in. I was an intern in process development and I loved it. But just having that opportunity to do a rotational program and do a little bit of everything, I felt like it was the right fit at the time.
Yeah, no, I bet. Yeah, when I hear about like rotational programs, I always think that they're really good experiences because you get exposure to like different aspects of the industry and not just one. So you get a little bit more of a variety in experience, but you also get to see, okay, I like this, I don't like this so much, and it just helps you understand yourself better almost. So, is there any like hard or soft skills that you guys would say that have become very valuable now in your professional career?
Yeah, I would say it might sound simple, but definitely just critical thinking skills and the ability to communicate with others. So right now, a big part of my job is communicating with sales reps and field clinicians and people who are out in the fields. And we could see things differently. So it's very helpful to have strong communication skills, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. Communication, especially when I was in my PD rotation, our R&D team was based here in Boston. And whenever we had issues, we had to make sure we were communicating really well because we had to contribute to the design. If there was some thing we thought could be worked better for the process, then we would communicate that with R&D engineers.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that communication is like one of those skills that can be used for any field, whether you're an engineer, you're in marketing, whatever it is, communication is always great. Being able to deliver your thoughts in an efficient manner and it just helps everyone, even in like personal relationships. I mean, communication is the best thing you can have. Um, so, what would you say has been? I know this is such an interview question, but what has been like one of the toughest moments or like hardest obstacles that you faced so far during your professional career? And I know this wasn't in the outline, so you have to think about it for a little bit. Like that's fine. But would you say that there's been a moment where you've struggled the most so far? And it could also be during your undergrad. I know Vanessa, you just graduated, so yeah, maybe something that you had to face and you had to overcome and how you did it.
I'd say microaggressions.
Oh.
So I feel like that's a big one. Being a woman of color in engineering in a white male dominated field,
Mhm.
um, sometimes there's certain you're supposed to fit a certain mold, and kind of overcoming that and just overcoming like being a woman. Like I like painting my nails, and just sometimes I feel self-conscious doing that going into the lab.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been really hard for me to get over,
Yeah.
and just kind of like trying to be myself. But I have mentors because I love networking. I have people that I go out and reach out to, especially Latina engineers, where I ask them the same questions, where it's like, how do you feel about painting your nails at work or speaking Spanish at work? How do you feel about that? And I feel more comfortable with it, but definitely starting out in my career, it was hard.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. I it's almost like it's like built in you. Like it's not even like anyone tells you anything. It's just kind of like for me, maybe it's not so much like painting my nails, for example, but like I always think like, oh, I want to dress nicer and just like look girly or nice, but then my conscience is like, no, like what if people judge me because I dress a certain way? And like no one really tells you anything, but it's just like built in you for some reason. It's like crazy, but yeah, it definitely takes, just like self acknowledgement and just realizing that you can do whatever you want. No one's going to judge you. But yeah, I totally agree that it's also because of what we see is so different. So yeah, it's definitely a day-to-day obstacle.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. I would say for me, so my final co-op with Boston Scientific was the fall of last year, and it was in their manufacturing plant in Indiana. And that's when the gears started turning about full-time jobs. Like, what am I going to do after graduation? And personally, after experiencing process development and being in a manufacturing setting, I kind of started thinking that didn't really see myself in a full-time position in that environment.
Mhm.
Um, but also, I was thinking about kind of like an easy route to just have something outside of graduation would be to accept a full-time offer that was offered to me during that time. So I didn't decide to accept it, and I kind of was in the state of not knowing. And I think that was for me pretty scary, not knowing what I was going to do after graduation and making that decision of consciously rejecting something that, was secure.
Mhm.
But I think overall in the end it was good because I kind of challenged myself to explore different options. And although it was scary, I was able to get through it. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me that I've overcome.
Yeah, that's definitely a bold decision, letting go of that security, um, and trusting that you can do what you want to do and just aim higher or for things that you're more interested in. And I'm wondering, overall, are you guys, what's the word? But do you guys enjoyed your biomedical engineering degree? Is there anything you regret from it now looking back? I know a lot of people here ask, should we do electrical or mechanical or another kind of engineering instead of BME? What would you guys say to those people? Are you satisfied with your degree?
I am. I definitely am. So I love biology. I didn't want to major in just bio. The whole engineering being hands on is what really attracted me to it. But I'd say like if you're passionate in biology and about engineering, then just do BME. You're not working on life changing problems sometimes, like as an undergrad in like EE or ME. Like you can be, but usually BME because it is bio related.
Right.
It's very life changing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't regret doing BME. And I think something that's neat about it is you can really choose what you want to concentrate in. So
Mhm.
in my case, I was a lot more interested in like the mechanical side of it. So I was
Mhm.
able to take more mechanical engineering classes and even be with mechanical engineering students. So I definitely appreciate that aspect of the degree.
Mhm. Is there any classes that you guys took that you think actually helped you now that you're in the professional world? Or has it really been just mostly the experience and soft skills that you've acquired along the way?
I'd say the one class is statistics. Yeah, so the statistics class helped me, and the rest has really been soft skills and asking around. Just, yeah, because being in the medical device field, since it's very regulated, you have to know what those regulations are. We have standard operating procedures or work instructions that we follow. So once you know that, you can really know the ins and outs of a project and how to go about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. I would also add having time management and organization skills is super helpful and important. And you can kind of show that by being involved in things outside of just classes.
Mhm.
I think that helped a lot too in finding a job.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and that's very true. So I think we can jump into answering some of the questions that we've gotten in the comments. I know there's a couple of ones. Let me see. Like the first one is, on what field of BME are you most interested in?
So I'd say
I
the
know,
medical device field. I mean,
yeah.
because that is where we work. But yeah, I think yeah, medical device prosthetics, just designing products that will help make people's lives better.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Kim, I actually have a question regarding prosthetics because that is a question we get a lot here too. People wonder if you can really work on prosthetics as a BME. And I know we talked about this before, briefly, but what would be your opinion on that? And Vanessa, you could add on to it as well if you know anything.
I definitely think you can. I have classmates I graduated with that work at Johnson and Johnson for prosthetics. It really is about the classes you choose. So
Mhm.
since we don't really have a focus in my school, kind of towards the end, you would take more mechanical classes and more of those deep dive physics. But with any job, it really is what you bring to the table. If you show that you're willing to learn in those interviews, then I'm sure they'll bring you on.
Mhm.
I agree with that.
And Vanessa, you were more on the biomechanics area. Would you say that that's probably the concentration that someone should choose if they're interested in prosthetics?
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. And in my classes, one specific class I took was called Computational Biomechanics, where we learned finite element analysis. And I think that's used a lot within industry. So that's definitely one hard skill that would be very helpful. and having.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I think the next question is, how did it feel having a job offer before graduating?
It felt amazing. When I got the offer, I cried. I called my parents. But also, like some background on that. So I had an internship between junior and senior year with Boston Scientific in Minnesota. I had gotten a full-time offer, which for personal reasons I had declined at the time. I wasn't ready to commit to moving out to Minnesota from New York. But then it came time to find a job. And everything was able to get resolved. And because of networking that I did while I was at the Minnesota site, I connected with people in the Spencer site, in the Boston sites, and was able to connect enough to get a job offer.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I can only imagine that's like an amazing feeling of a great feeling of accomplishment. And Vanessa, I know we talked a little bit about how it felt to not accept that job offer and decide to wait a little bit more. But how did it feel once you got this most recent job offer?
Felt like 1,000 bricks taken off my shoulder. It was very relieving and just like a nice outcome of college. Like you see that it's worth going to college and going through the studies and the difficulties. So I felt
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, next question, and I think it might be our last question, is can a person doing biomedical engineering also do robotics?
Yes, I definitely think so. Again, it depends on what you do in your undergrad and the classes you take. You definitely want to take a couple more EE classes, or maybe just go on Khan Academy or Code Academy and learn some code that's applicable to robotics. But I think it's definitely a heads up when you work for robotics BME type companies, because you have that biology background versus an ME or an EE that didn't.
Mhm. No, I agree. And one thing I also like to tell people is that even if your classes don't offer you the necessary knowledge or skills, there's still like research labs or organizations. I know there's like robotics organizations, or maybe sometimes research labs will actually do prosthetics and things like that. So you, there's so much you can do outside of classes. And honestly, I feel like most of the knowledge, like the real knowledge and skills, come from that experience that you get outside of your classes. But it definitely takes a lot of time management, like Vanessa was talking about, to really be able to do all these things, because BME is definitely not an easy degree. You do have to put a lot of effort into it. Okay, so I think, okay, we have one more question. Okay, it's a random question, kind of more of a personality question, but do y'all prefer warm or cold weather?
I would say warm weather.
Yeah,
Warm.
I'd say warm weather as well. Fall is my favorite season, but it's also warmer than winter.
What's the weather like right now where you guys are at?
It's pretty cold. It's starting to get pretty cold.
Yeah, it's
Oh
like
no.
it was 40s this week up here in Boston.
Wow. No, we're in Texas, so it's pretty warm. We did get like a cold front a few weeks ago, I think, and it might have gone down to the 50s,
Wow.
maybe 40s, I don't know. But it only lasted like a few days, and now it's back, I wouldn't say like in the 80s probably, if not the 70s for sure. So,
That's
yeah, it's
nice.
very different. But I think from someone that lives in the warm area, then hearing you guys talk about the cold weather, it's like, oh, I wish it was colder here. So I think that's just always the case. Um, okay. Oh, we have one more question. What is your dream job?
Hmm.
Good question.
Yeah, I feel like that changes for me. Like when I was an undergrad, my dream job is to be an R&D engineer. Now I am an R&D engineer, so I guess my next dream job is kind of to go into management within engineering. But I'm pretty sure like if I get there, it'll change. I think we're always evolving. We always like have our different like 2-year plans, 5-year plans.
No, I agree. What about you, Vanessa?
I'm really interested in sports medicine products. So
Okay.
I think my dream would be to either design them or just work with them in any capacity.
Does Boston Scientific have any sports medicine products?
Not currently, but
Mhm.
maybe in the
Maybe in the
future.
future.
No, but
Okay.
currently. But one company, Johnson and Johnson, does have a lot. So I like. I think it's called the Q Sports Medicine. It's pretty
Okay.
interesting to look at. And
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very interesting area. Do you do any sports, or are you just interested um,
I
because you're interested?
like a little bit of both. I'm pretty active. Like I like to run and I like to go to the gym. I recently started lifting, which is really cool.
Nice.
Enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, I just really like mechanics, like the mechanics of the body. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. No, that's I. It's really interesting because in all our classes, it's kind of like you see, for example, instead of taking mechanics, it's like biomechanics. So you see all these applications, but in the human body. So it's definitely very interesting to start seeing our body as a machine and just even down to like the cellular level. It's like very interesting. So someone asked, could sports medicine save Dak Prescott's injury? I don't know if you guys know who that is, but my boyfriend keeps asking me if negative pressure could be applied and just save this guy. But yeah, I think what are some things that you could share about sports medicine? Just like maybe like the top level fields that there are, or like things you can do with it.
Um, from my knowledge, I know there's a lot of like hip replacement, knee
Mhm.
replacements, like ligament surgeries. So all the devices that are used to help in those surgeries. Um,
Right.
there's
It's almost like a little bit of, or like mostly orthopedics. Would you say that? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a ton of positions in quality, research, post-market surveillance even. So yeah, it's a big field. It's a
Yeah.
field.
Okay. Well, I think those are all the questions for today. And we just like to close this podcast out by asking if just any advice that you may have for either students that are already in the program or thinking about BME, or maybe I guess there's three different kinds of people, but people thinking about BME, people that are in BME, and then professionals that have graduated in BME and maybe you're not finding a job. Do you have any advice for any of those groups?
I'd say don't give up. I know as a student, I think maybe a couple of times a week, I'd question myself, like, why am I doing engineering? Because it was just so tough. But yeah, I always thought like make your younger self proud and
Yeah.
your older self will be proud of you. So yeah, definitely don't give up, job hunt, engineering school.
It's great advice.
And I would second that, and I would just add to try to find like a good group of people that'll support you, through those difficult times of studying,
Mhm.
staying up late, and also try to enjoy your time in college. Like it is a lot of studying, but it's important to enjoy the college experience. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would.
Yeah. No, totally agree. I think finding friends that can support you through your career is really good. You're definitely going to need people to that can help you with homework and studying, but really just supporting you. I know my group of friends was just I really enjoyed having them because they really inspired me to get internships, join research labs, and things like that. So you definitely do want to surround yourself with people that will push you to succeed. Um, but okay, I think I'm sorry, we have one more question, which is I have programming and simulation knowledge, but I don't know how to use them in BME. So it's not really a question, but I think you can definitely use programming in BME. Do you guys use any programming at your current jobs or positions?
So there is a team member that knows Python, and we did some image analysis. So we're rotating a catheter and we're trying to see how many seconds it gets to that rotation. So if you just put the videos onto this program, then it'll like split out all this data versus you having to look at it. And I think this is also applicable in sports medicine. Like for example, any prosthetics, there's a lot of tech going into that so that it can move with your ligaments or with the electrical current of your body.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that. And programming can be helpful, I think, for any degree. It's just a good skill to have. Okay, so I think we've reached the end, and I just like to thank both of you for taking the time and just be willing to be on this podcast and share about your knowledge. And again, just encourage people to pursue biomedical engineering because it's just great.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And we're going to just say, I guess, end the broadcast now, and we'll say bye to all the viewers. So thank you all for watching.